Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for the town of Rockland, Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. Please stand and join for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPS Rockland. Please go to www.WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, community announcements. Doug?
So we actually have representatives from the Pac-12 Cub Scouts here. If you're okay, Mike, we could have them come up to the mic.
Absolutely. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Adam Heckman, and I'm with Rockland Cub Scouts Pac-12. And as we've done in years past, we'd like to have a recruitment day. It's a council-wide event that is sponsored by the council, and it's one of our biggest draws of the year as far as getting new scouts into the pack. And we like to do it at Town Hall Plaza because it's it's central. People can walk to it, and I was hoping you guys would be on board.
What are the times for the signups?
The time, it's September 10th, and what is the times? 10 to 2. 10 to 2.
Okay. So I'm sure there'll be a reminder at some point, but technically you don't need our permission, but ceremoniously I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Get a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion. Did I get 2 seconds on it? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Great.
See you guys on September 10th.
All right, thank you very much.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
See? Painless. Next on the agenda, review and approval of minutes of June 21st, 2022.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 21st, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. And one abstention?
No.
Yep,
I'm
perfect.
not abstention.
Yep, thank you.
Yes,
I know.
Okay, next on the agenda, under new business, board reorganization. I think first we should do the chairperson. If we have any motions?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Michael Laughlin as the chair of the Board of Selectmen.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it. I'll get better at that. It's old habits, Okay, so next, our vice chair position. I'll make a motion for Kara. Kara's done it for a few years now, and I think her experience is very valued to me as chair. So with that, I'll put a motion out there.
Make a motion for Kara to be vice chair of the board.
Okay, so that's a second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that is also unanimous. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike, and the rest of the board.
Thank you, ladies. Say again. Okay, next on the agenda, one-day liquor license request for the farmer's market. Doug, or do we have somebody? Or is Jean going to come up? I know she's not here for that specifically, but...
This is for the homestead beverage on July 23rd, September 10th, September 24th, and October 8th at the farmer's market from 12 to 4.
Hi. So Allison's on vacation. You have me. This is the same as all of the other ones, so there's nothing really different about this group. We're just looking to see if they can jump on board with the one-day liquor license to come to the farmer's market.
All the paperwork looks in order. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the one-day liquor license for the farmer's market for homestead beverage
Second.
on said dates.
Was that a second word? Is that what you said? Okay, I wasn't sure if you said on said dates, so.
That was me.
That was you that said that, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a motion and a second to approve the one-day liquor license for 7/23, 9/10, 9/24, and 10/8 for homestead beverage at the farmer's market. All those in favor?
Yep.
Also unanimous?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jean.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay, next on the agenda, it's a reappointment for Peter Dow, Register of Voters. A Anybody have any comments, concerns? Peter's been on several boards throughout town for many years now. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to reappoint Peter Dow for the Register of Voters.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Motion in 2 seconds. All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Okay. Wow, this is the lightning round. This is great.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda, new appointments. Melissa Bergio, Cultural Council. Melissa, you there? Come on up. Melissa, welcome. So typically, what we like to do is if there's somebody that's new, that is applying for a position, we like to at least, put a face to the name and kind of have a quick conversation, just, gauging, what your interest is specifically and what drew you to the Cultural Council outside of recommendation from Rob Rosa back there.
Sure. Well, I recently moved back to Rockland after being away for 8 years, and I just wanted to get re-involved with the community. I lived here 8 years prior to that, so it's sort of like 8 and 8. And I lived in Lowell. They had a very active community, and I really enjoyed that, so I just wanted to get that here. So getting involved will get me that, I'm very active in volunteering, so this is just another way to do that.
Anybody have any questions for Melissa?
Yeah, do you have any ideas for the Cultural Council?
Well, one of the things that really excited me was that the sandpaper factory is open and active, because, I would go to the mill number 5 in Lowell, and so that, getting more active, getting more people there, going to that is really exciting for me. The festivals, the holiday stroll, that sort of thing, bringing more people into the community is really, so active ideas, no, but I really am good at generating ideas, especially working with a team.
Very good. Anybody else? Any questions, comments?
I want to thank you for your enthusiasm for the council and for the town. It's going to be great.
Thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, ARPA requests. Doug.
Thanks, Mike. So I'd like to do a brief overall intro, and then another small intro before Chief Duffy comes up, and then also before Recreation Director Jean Blaney comes up. In your binder, I think it should be right after letter E, before the chief's presentations, you should see an updated one-page ARPA spreadsheet. So I wanted to start with that. So again, for everyone's reference, ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act. So what I tried to do, the last few times we've talked about this, everything is sort of evolving. So I've tried to summarize things, and then I started putting sort of check marks next to things that we're earmarking, and then I thought it's just going to be simpler to put everything on one page, what we've actually spent, what the ideas are, what we've already allocated, and what the balance is, just so we don't have to refer to multiple documents. So that's what this sheet is. So on the top, at the very top in the upper right-hand corner, you can see our two allocations, 1.88 million in the non-entitlement unit funding. That's the funding we get directly from the federal government. And then 3.38 million, which is the money that we'll get through Plymouth County. So those are our two total allocations. The first category at the top is what we labeled completed items. So that's items that have been, they're done. That funding has been spent. Now you can see the vast bulk of that was done to replace lost revolving fund revenue replacement at the first tranche of funding we got from the federal government from that non-entitlement unit funding. Most of it went to various school revolving funds because they were the largest. A few went to the town revolvings. And then 2 technology purchases, one for the school department and one for the waterworks. So that is all that has, as of the time that I printed this document, all that's been completed cash. So then the numbers below that are what's listed as non-completed items. You can see all the ideas that we've talked about on the left-hand side, and on the right are the items that we've previously talked about and the board has sort of given consensus to allocating. And you can see we've allocated $500,000 for the water department for PFAS remediation, $515,000 for sewer department, boiler replacement, and then a couple items for the school department, and then some community and economic development items below. And I put the dollars in the appropriate category so you can see which source of funding it's coming from. So if you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see what we've allocated, what's available. There's a little bit of interest that we're accruing on the funding that we have from the feds. So you see from the non-entitlement unit funding, we have a little over $805,000 available. And on the Plymouth County funding, we have a little under $2.4 million available. And again, that's assuming that everything that we've committed above actually comes to fruition and we end up paying. So this is the source of funds that we're recommending we use to fund two items that have been in the works for a while. The first is some technical assistance toward the fire station building project, and then the second is the recreation department building. So if we'll start with fire, because we have them listed first on the agenda. I'll have the chief come up in a moment, but the next, or come up now if you'd like, chief, that's fine, I'm almost done. What we've talked about is continuing to move the project forward from a planning perspective. What the group has discussed is we know that if we're going to construct a building at the Lincoln School site, which is the only site that's feasible at this point that the town owns, and I should have highlighted earlier, there's a ton of information in your packet, which I know you've seen, a number of different studies, and the chief's most recent presentation he gave at the public outreach meeting. If we're going to continue at that site, ultimately we'll have to get a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals if we're going to make that happen. So the chief's idea, and I think it was a really good one, is let's keep things moving, let's go for the special permit, because if we don't get it for whatever reason, then we know that site is dead and we don't have to invest any more time or money pursuing that site. And if we do get it, then we've knocked one milestone off the list, and then we can continue all the outreach and policy discussions that we'll need to have if we're really going to go forward. So the chief reached out to the architect that he's worked with for years now on this project, and you can see the grand total cost is a little over $170,000. And again, this is cost for architects and engineers and all the related professionals to do all the work necessary to properly submit an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit. And I want to stress that this is, I guess depending on how you look at it, the chief and I thought it could be a much higher number. It was actually lower than we thought. Others might think, wow, that's $170,000 is a lot. Part of it is because the requirements that the town of Rockland has and the Zoning Board of Appeals has is rigorous, and it's there for a reason. If there's a special permit, and Rob's here, so Rob, you jump in and correct me if you disagree with any of my characterizations, but if a special permit is required, that's for a reason. That's so that the abutters in the community has some input and say on what the impacts of a potential project might be. And so you need to have a lot of details. You need to have the engineering. You need to understand, what things are going to look like, aesthetically, all the different various impacts. And so that's why you'll see all the details in here about what's the type of work that they'll do. I would also recommend, in addition to this $170,600, that we also do that additional $7,000 to $9,000 for an updated cost estimate, because I think that's useful information. We should have that. So I probably stole a lot of the chief's thunder, but that's what we're recommending to fund from ARPA. Maybe the last thing I'll say is, it's possible if we really want to keep moving this thing along, it's possible that we could engage, if you approve, engage the architects to do this work, pursue the special permit, and if we secure a special permit, potentially there could be time to line something up in time to get this project on the warrant and on a ballot for next May. So that's a different timeline than the recreation project, which we can talk about. So I don't know, Chief, I see what I left out or see what you want to supplement there.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for having this on your agenda tonight. And yeah, what he said. So, no, Doug covered it
Yeah.
very, very well, better than I could. So I think the ARPA funds would be a great use for this project. And, you know, to continue it to move forward. We have a great set of architects working on this. And the team that we originally started with is still there at the firm. So I see that as a plus also. So there's no new learning curve. So, yeah, I think Doug covered very well, so thank you.
Sure, thanks, Chief. I guess one thing I would stress is, you know, if we didn't have ARPA funding, we don't have the funds to do this. We would have to wait until a special town meeting or next May's annual town meeting and try to fund it through free cash. So we're fortunate that we have ARPA available for this. But if for whatever reason you feel like, you know, I don't want to do this project, or I don't think we need this project, like now's the time we should kind of have some of those discussions. Because again, we're not locking in 100% to doing it, because that's still going to require town meeting and the ballot. But we would be investing time and money pursuing this, and so we should publicly just make sure that you are all comfortable with moving down this path. And that's part of why I put so much material in your packet to kind of demonstrate the need for the building and why this location makes the most sense.
Any discussion? Any concerns, questions?
I had a
Comments?
question. I actually agree that building a new fire station is necessary, personally. I represent residents, and the questions I'm getting from residents is, why are we building a new firehouse when we have to pay off a new school? And how much more are their taxes going to go up? So I'd just like to put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are great questions and concerns. I'm a resident myself, and this would move the fire station closer to home for me. So I get it. I understand it.
Yeah.
As far as the total cost to the residents of what it would be, we don't know. And that's why we're asking for that additional $7,000 to $9,000 for the cost estimation. Once we get that cost estimation, we'd be able to work with the financial team to see what that would actually look like as far as taxes. To answer your question on the schools, you know, the town is so far behind on capital projects. I think we're going to be running into this for the next, 30 years. I think that there's always going to be that next project, Unfortunately, our buildings are old. They haven't been, we haven't kept up with keeping them not maintained, but not new or not, on a replacement cycle. So the fire station was built in 1939 with an addition in 1978, and there's been no real major renovation since that 1978. So we're already, 44 years or 34 years past that. So that's one reason, we've just run out of space, and we're in desperate need of a fire station for those that have been there. Anybody that wants to come up for the public, obviously the members of the board, anybody in town can come up and for a tour of the station. I'd be more than happy to bring them through to see why and explain why we need a new station. It's just unfortunate that, we're dealing with two schools, road projects, a recreation building that needs to be coming, sewer and water projects. It's just, the infrastructure in the town is needy right now.
If I can add a couple points to that too. I mean, I agree with everything the chief said. Roughly speaking, this project will be somewhere between, a third to a quarter the cost of what the school is, just for like frame of reference. But we don't have the exact numbers yet. We need more cost estimation done, although costs likely will be higher now because of everything is costing more these days. The question about doing this when we're paying for a school and other issues, it's a great question, and every community grapples with this question. Sometimes communities get paralyzed by that because they're worried that, well, we can't talk about this because we know we need a big sewer plant renovation, or and then when you're always worried about that other thing, then nothing gets done. And I've seen that in communities where you just get paralyzed, right? So, that's part of the job of the selectmen, is to prioritize things, for the community. So, one approach is, a board can take is you're going to rank the projects. You're going to say, this is the most important one, and that's second, and that's third, and you wait to get number one completed before you get to number two, et cetera. Other approaches are, which is what I kind of think has happened in Rockland, is as as a needed project gets brought to the point where it's ready, it gets presented, and, you know, you guys decide if it's something that you think is important for the voters to be able to have a say on, and you put it before the voters to choose, and not wait for something else that might take longer to get done, and then meanwhile, in this example, the fire station building is getting worse and worse, and we're having to put good money after bad, and it's only gonna cost more the longer we wait. So it's, you know, there's different ways to look at it, but it's,
And I think it's something that we got to kind of remember, and it's unfortunate, but, you know, generations in this town have passed these projects along to the current board. And so as it seems that all these projects are getting done all at once, yeah, it's getting done all at once because they fell to a point where they're at disrepair. And you have to replace it, as opposed to having done preventative maintenance over the years and upgraded in small doses. I mean, the chief has presented to us several times about the carcinogens that exist at the fire station, and the fact that it's not safe in some ways for the turnout gear and the exposure that the firefighters have. It puts them at risk, and this new facility would take care of that and make it a state-of-the-art facility. But that has been the problem, and that's why I think you continually see more projects getting approved within town, because they have gone for so long with different boards over the years turning them down because, you know, they say, well, we're not going to be the ones to make the decision on it. Well, our job is to weigh the merits of what's presented to us, weigh the merits, the cost effectiveness of the presentations, and then put it on a warrant and let the residents at town meeting vote for it. And each of those projects were voted upon by the majority of the residents that showed up to vote that day. And in I don't know how many times I've said it, how important it is to get out there and vote and participate at town meeting, and we still end up having, you know, 1,000 people voting on election day in a town with 12,000 registered voters, and you know, we have 1,000 people voting, and then we have just over 250 people showing up, or 300 people showing up for a town meeting, and again, a town with 12,000 registered voters. And
Well, you know, another thing with deciding whether to build a municipal building is, what can the old buildings be turned into?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Repurposing,
So you
sure.
repurpose them. You can sell them to developers who, I mean, in DC, they took an old firehouse and made a firehouse restaurant with all the firehouse food and stuff.
I mean, if you go to whatever the main street is in Plymouth, right?
Yeah.
The San
San
Diego's there
Diego's
was an old
Right.
fire station. So
Yeah.
personally, I would highly recommend, given
brewery or
Union
something.
Street and our revitalization efforts, if we're
Yeah.
able to build a new building, to absolutely, you know,
Use the
repurpose that
facade,
through a
yeah.
private development, put it on the tax
Right.
rolls, get a new business in.
Right.
Absolutely.
But I think
So-
I think it's our job, when it comes down to, you know, seeing the price tags of these projects. It's our job to find other projects that can mitigate some of that tax burden on the residents. I mean, we had that GMOD project that would have potentially helped us with a lot of those issues. From, you know, the sewer would have been, you know, potentially covered by the developers. Water capacity would have been a cure-all for the developers, and then potentially get to the point with the new businesses that were going to go there with our commercial tax rate, our commercial tax, what our commercial tax income would be. You might have the opportunity to save the taxpayers money.
Might do a
And-
split rate.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, those are all things that were potentially on the table that, you
Right.
know, that's for us to try to find ways to help, you know, soften the blow of things that 100% needed by the town.
So we could have potentially put like a Trader Joe's there and a.
Yeah, and a movie
you know,
theater,
and a-
all these
okay.
other things, we're planning on going there, but people showed up to town meeting and they voted down the zoning of that area, and it became one of those things where now you sit back, like, now how do you want to pay for these projects that we need, water capacity, new sewer plant? We had developers on the hook to do that, to assist us in our goals, and, you know, it's just one of those things. I think it's one of those things where we just better, you know, better communication, I think, to the public, and make sure that the message that is received isn't able to be spun in a manner to manipulate somebody's agenda or whatever narrative they're looking for, you know. So,
To get back to today's discussion, I also feel that this is a great, excuse me, use of ARPA funds because knowledge is power. And so the more that we learn, there's
Yeah.
clearly a need. I enjoyed the presentation the chief gave at the community abutters meeting, not only for the safety of our fire department, but at the same time for our town to be better equipped. It's important. So I think it's a great use of our ARPA towns, and with the 7,000 to 9,000 to bring that cost estimate up to present day, we'll have all the knowledge we need to be able to move forward, and then the town will be able to decide. But you can only decide if you have,
If you know the numbers.
if you know the facts. So I think it's a great use of that.
And I'll also add that it's probably been over a century since since the town has actually had to put money into a fire facility. 1938 construction of that new station was federal funds. The 1978 construction was through federal funds. So it was probably the old wooden firehouse prior to the 1939 that the town potentially actually paid for a new fire station. With these cost estimates and creeping a little bit closer to a final product, we still continue to search for grants and funding opportunities for the fire station. There are rumors out there of federal grants through FEMA, through the Assistance to Firefighters grant, that they might actually release funds for fire station construction projects. Big caveat with that is that they look for shovel-ready projects. So every step we take, in this process is another step closer to a shovel-ready project. So that's another thing. The state, hopefully they'll have some type of municipal building fund similar to the schools and libraries. That's something that we're always, our legislative leaders were always, harping on them. And poor Senator Keenan, I think he knows what's going to come out every time I say hello to him, that, to work on that. So, yeah, I think as we get closer to a final project, it just helps us in the long run.
And Mike, if I can just add on to what the chief said,
Absolutely.
I agree with everything he said, but he was giving an optimistic perspective on what he hopes will be some opportunities, and I hope as well. But also, just to be clear, as of today, there aren't federal grants and there aren't any state programs like there are for schools and libraries. So, if we were to do this today, it would be a full debt exclusion for Rockland voters to have to fund this project. So I just want that to be clear. But just as the chief said, we'll absolutely pursue every opportunity out there. But unfortunately, the only state programs are for libraries and schools. They aren't for public safety buildings. And there's been bills proposed that would have a similar program for public safety facilities, which they should, because every community needs one, just like every community needs schools and libraries. So we'll pursue it, but I just want you to know that that doesn't exist today. The only other thing I wanted to highlight, mainly more for the public, because I know you all know this, but I don't want people to think that we need to build a new building because our current building hasn't been maintained. Even if it was maintained perfectly and reinvested over the years, it's simply too small. The lot is too small, the building's too small, it doesn't fit the equipment, there's no room for those types of stations like you talked about, Mike, to keep the firefighters safe. So it's a combination of a lot of things, but in addition to that, it's just literally, we've outgrown it. The town's grown a lot in the last 70 years.
Okay. So with that being said, I'll take first, any other discussion on the matter from any of the members of the board. I guess what I'd be probably looking for is just to supply Doug the direction to go forward with this. So we could ceremoniously do that in the form of a vote, or we can just go with the consensus. If there's no further discussion, I suppose I'd entertain a motion to move forward with the feasibility study for the fire station.
Make a motion. for
Through
the
use of ARPA
feasibility.
funds, yeah.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Great,
All right.
Thank you both for the continued support. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chief.
Thank you.
great, thank you. So if you can indulge me to do another intro
more
for the
time.
next project. So, the fire station's hard. This one's even harder, to be honest, the community center, the McKinley building. The board knows the history, well. We've done a lot of work. Included in your packet is some very detailed facility assessments and feasibility studies that we hired architects to do just within the last couple of years. And what they did was great. There's some wonderful options where we could have, we could theoretically move town offices into that building and repurpose this building for private development. We could add all the recreation uses we need, other space for the community with theater, all kinds of great uses, but of course at a tremendous cost. When this was done a few years ago, the cost to properly renovate and rehabilitate this building was, I think, over $23 million. And it's certainly a lot more now given today's costs. When you go through the material, especially if you look at the executive summary of that facility report, and they talk about the existing conditions, I mean, it's literally every single component of the building is past its useful life. The roof, the masonry, the windows, every mechanical system, plumbing, heating, electric. And we're getting to a point now where, as you know, we don't have a facilities department, but even if we did have a person that was a facilities director, we need millions and millions of dollars to keep this building safe. And we're getting to a point now between, Jean will come up in a minute, and if you want, she can give more details. But I think we're at that point now where I think some tough decisions are going to have to be made. And Jean and Jen and I have talked a lot about this over the last couple of years. At Mike's direction, I sent Jean and Jen out all over town looking at places to rent to see if there was some other low-cost solution to rent a space. It just doesn't exist. So the choices that we're really left with for the community center and for the recreation department is invest a ton of money into that building to rehabilitate it. And again, the estimate here was $23 million. So a ton of money, and that would be ideal. We would love that, and it would be wonderful for the community. Given all of our other priorities and the burden on taxpayers, our suspicion is that's not going to fly, and that's not something that you'd recommend at this point. So another option is to really decimate what that department does and put them back down in that small corner break room where they were temporarily when we were doing the sprinklers, and they would just have very modest amounts of program they would do, the summer camp and maybe some lifeguards, and that would be that. What we're recommending instead, so those are kind of the two extremes. What we're recommending instead in the middle would be constructing a new building at Hartsuff Park. And Hartsuff Park would be a great location, we think, because there's room, and that would be kind of the cornerstone of all the activities that Jean and her crew do there with the summer camp and all the other programs and activities that happen there. It would all be integrated. So this is a little bit farther behind in the fire station project. So what we're asking for here would be to hire an architect, again using ARPA funds, to do a feasibility study. So it's sort of like one step behind, the fire department's already had that done. There were previous studies done that Jean was involved in before my time, where they looked at potentially combining a community center recreation with the fire station at the Lincoln School site, and the site's really just not big enough for that. So we're looking at potentially some kind of modest structure at Hartsuff that would include offices, program space, and hopefully some kind of gymnasium type space, because that's a huge part of what recreation does. But there's a lot of work. These are just ideas we have. Jean's already had done, using Community Preservation Act funds, a master use plan for the park as a park. So that's like a great underlying piece of information we have. Now we'd have architects kind of superimpose what would a community center, recreation center, rec department office look like on that site. So maybe with that, Jean, if you want to come up and add on to that, you'll see your cost estimate is on the first tab there, and it's approximately $100,000 for the feasibility study.
Welcome, Jean. How are
Thanks
you?
for having me. So Doug, once again, that was pretty much everything that I was going to say. I think that I've been in the champion corner of trying to renovate McKinley, I don't know, since 2017.
Wow.
We've done so much work and to try and get estimates on elevators, roofs, generators, flooring, I don't know, you name it, the brickwork outside. And I know we've done some stuff to the building, but it's just not enough. This is hard. It's really hard because this community loves this building. And I understand that. And I really, I mean, the chief will even tell you that I sat there and, you know, back when we were doing the sprinkler, I was going to sit on the front steps and say, nobody's coming to chain these doors. I'm going to sit here and the building's going to remain open. And we got that done. It's just not enough. Currently, we finally have a generator that's up and running. It took about 4 months, and a great company that manufactured parts in their offices. There are no parts for that current generator, so we will be looking at a new generator. We currently have our elevator that's out of service because, again, it's so old that it needs to be renovated. They're actually currently constructing parts that don't exist in their machine departments. And I could probably go on from there, but I won't bore you with all the details. So McKinley's tired, and that's where we finally came to this. And honestly, if it wasn't for the ARPA funds, I probably wouldn't be sitting in front of you. I'd be asking for money to continue to put Band-Aids on that building. But I think it's a great way to investigate what we could potentially have and make that decision. So with that, I have to say that Doug has pretty much said everything. What we did with the fire station was programming. Was that the chief that interrupted me?
That was the chief, yeah. Is that Adele? Did
I was
hear Adele?
quiet. It was Adele. Anyways, so I just lost my train of thought.
You were talking about
I know,
combining
so
with the fire
programming.
station.
So we've actually done a lot of programming with Schwartz and Silver, who is working with the fire station. I've gone back through that programming and redlined some of it. Some of it I think it's necessary to keep, and then some of it I'd be looking for the input of the community as well as yourselves. So we've done a lot of work already. This would be kind of going to that next step. And Hartsuff Park it's a great place to have it. We've already started to put a lot of work into that park. I know people can't see it, but I worked with a lot of plumbers and electricians over the past couple of months and we'll continue to work with them to start to renovate some of the stuff that's in there. However, this is that next step forward. So I'd ask the board to consider it. I think it's a great use of the funding. Again, we wouldn't have this opportunity if we didn't have the funds.
And Jean, if I can add, just as like one more illustrative example, because this is a common thing that Jean deals with. She's our facilities director at the building, which is really not fair to her. Every time there's a leak in that building, which happens frequently, she calls the plumber, and they open up the wall to investigate it, and as they try to deal with it, the pipe literally just disintegrates and crumbles. So every little leak turns into like a massive thing because all the systems in that building are just way past their useful life. And part of the concern now is if we don't explore another option and if we don't do anything, we can't keep doing what we've been doing. We're going to need to ask for, it'll have to be at least millions of dollars just to get the rest of the building safe. We have the sprinklers done. That's great. That's perfect. That's like new. But that's just one small part of that building. So if we don't do something, we're going to have to spend a lot of money. And I think the other point is we're also getting to the point where if we don't do something different, we're concerned in the future there could be safety issues in that building. And then we'd have to really start scaling back what parts of the building we're using. And we certainly don't want to do that. The other 2 points I wanted to make is, this is preliminary. This is a feasibility study. So I don't want people to think too far ahead about, well, what about this program and what about that program and is that program going to fit at Hartsuff? There'll be a lot of public discussions with community input about what will continue and what won't continue given the spaces that might be available. So I just don't want people to get worried yet. This is the beginning of that planning phase. And then the last thing was just because we mentioned the sprinklers, we both did. I don't want the community to think that that was wasted money because it was not wasted money. Number one, it's kept us in that building running programs for a number of years. But also, if we're able to successfully do this and build a new building at Hartsuff Park, that would be a great building if we get authorization from town meeting to get authorization to sell and redevelop with private developers. And our recommendation would be, given Union Street and the zoning there, have it be mixed use with some kind of commercial activities on the ground floor, commercial art activities, and potentially some housing up above, something like that. It'd be wonderful, and that would help feed into the whole revitalization of Union Street that we talked about, so.
And just
wanted
to piggyback on what you said about wasted money, it was money that had to be spent regardless, because if that building was closed, it still needed the sprinkler system
Yeah.
changed out, so it's not a fire hazard, so.
And we needed to
yeah.
keep using it, and if we're able to do this and redevelop it, that was an investment in the building that will be reflected in whatever kind of acquisition happens with a private developer, because we've already taken care of the sprinkling of that building, so I just wanted to make those points. But this is a big decision. If this was easy, this decision would have been made and we would have been on a different direction a long time ago, but we know it's tough. But as Gene said, we have this opportunity with ARPA funds, so it seems to make sense to hop on it, see if we have a good alternative.
So I'll open it up to the board. Any questions, comments, concerns?
So the total cost of the feasibility study would be about 100,000?
Correct. And similarly, I'm sorry, Kara, to jump on, if that was successful after we get to this point, the next step would be similar to what we're doing on the fire station, because a special permit would be required there as well. So the next step after this would be similarly a special permit application. So this is kind of lagging like a year behind the fire station timeline.
So Gene, obviously, I mean, I remember the Saturday morning selectmen's meeting we had, 4 years ago to try to come up with the funding for the sprinkler system to save the building. And I think Rich Penny famously said that, a program is more than the building that it's housed in. And you've done an incredible job of keeping that building going for the last 4 years, and even prior. But not just keeping that building going, but continuing to expand the programming. And I've referenced a couple times, we had some difficult conversations during the early parts of COVID as to what the future of the program might be. Well, you pretty much told me to hold your beer, and you build it back better than it's ever been, and it's got more programs and more community community excitement. I mean, people are just dying to see what the rec department's going to do next, and I think my personal feelings are that as a board we should support this project and explore it. Doug wasn't lying. During that conference call, I said, we can't sign off on anything unless we've explored every single possibility. And I called, I think, 2 days later, and I said, how are they doing? He said, they're out right now. They're checking every kind of warehouse possibility that they could find, every kind of rental spot. I think at one point you guys looked for Kathy Corrigan's, but they just sold it, and it's like nothing was available, and you guys overturned every single possibility. So I think it's important. I think it's an important program, and I think spending some money on a feasibility study and potentially spending some money down the road, I think it's a program that will continue to feed back, will continue to pay back over time, because there is that much excitement. And you're right, we spent the money to acquire extra acreage at Hartsuff Park for redevelopment of open space, and what better way to do that than have the offices down there and really expand the usage of that park, which is, like I said, it's a great park, and you guys have done a great job keeping it in great shape. So
Thank you.
I agree that this would be a great use of the ARPA funds. I also wanted to just highlight the fact that under Gene's leadership, the Rockland Rec has done so much and moved mountains on a shoestring budget. And I can only imagine, but these mountains are literally the heart of Rockland. Hartsuff is already the location of the summer camp. Now it's the farmers market, which is bringing people together, and hundreds and thousands of people together every other weekend. It's awesome, and they're continually, it's evolving, so that's such an amenity to the community, just bringing people together. And I can only imagine with a sound and safe building, so that your attention and so much of your teams right now is just making things work in a facility that's not equipped for you. So, but look at what you've done. So if we're able to, find the resources, or at least know what it would take for you and your team to have a safe, equipped building, I can only imagine the wonderful things that will continue to evolve for the community. So I'm all for utilizing the study. And once again, every time I see you, I say thank you so much for all you do for Rockland. But I'd like to once again take the opportunity to say thank you so much for all you do for Rockland.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Anybody else?
I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So, say this goes through, when would you foresee that a new building might be shovel-ready?
I like how you're thinking, all right.
Yeah,
Already
sure.
done right there. That's
Already there,
great.
good.
So again, I feel like we're kind of like 2 years away, so it would be not, we wouldn't be voting on this at next May's town meeting, because there wouldn't be time, so it'd be the year after that, so, for voting, and
Yeah.
then presumably after that, it gets fully designed and constructed. So it's like we're talking 2 years off.
Okay, so can you guys make it at McKinley until then?
That was my
We
next
will.
question.
Yeah? Okay.
We will do our best. Unfortunately, with the building, every day is a different day, Lori, and you've been in that building.
Yeah.
We've been in it together, and things happen every day. So there's always something that we're doing that, whether it's a maintenance, tiles popping up, sewing the gym back together, there's always something, but I don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not going to say for sure that something's not going to happen that's going to put us out of that building in the next 2 years. But we'll continue to work to get with Doug and Jen and you guys and, and try to make that happen.
Okay. And I just wanted to put a bug in your ear, Doug. I have somebody jumping at the bit to put a rock and roll club in Rockland. I think that would be a great use of the McKinley building.
Fantastic, and just so the public understands, if we do get to that point, which we all hope we do, so state law requires that we do a request for proposals process. So there'd be
Yeah.
it's unlike the private sector where you can kind of like line up a buyer. There'd be a public process. We would set the terms, so we could say we prefer this kind of mixed-use development or this kind of business. We can say what our preferences are, but it'll be an open, competitive process. I also neglected to mention one other thing, which is because the site we're talking about is Hartsuff Park, so the parks commissioners will obviously be involved in this process as well. They have a strong role in that land, so we'll make sure that this is a collaborative process.
Sure.
Anybody else? Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay.
Make a motion to approve the ARPA request for the Recreation Department building project.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. I
You're
appreciate it.
All right, you already won Rec Director of the Year, so
Yeah.
no pressure. No
Yeah,
pressure to
right.
repeat.
Thanks, Gene.
All right, moving on. Next on the agenda, remote participation in public meetings, state legislative update. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. So I wanted to give an update for the board and also for the public and any other board or committee chairs that might be watching. As a reminder that under current state law, the flexibility that we have to do remote meetings is currently set to expire on July 15th. There is a lot of activity at the State House with different bills that are pending that could extend it with certain kinds of conditions. And I put in your packet Mass Municipal Association legislative alert. And these are big when it's red legislative alert and it's like urgent, please call your legislators today. So that always gets everyone's attention. And the issue is that there's a couple of different bills pending. What we obviously would like to see, and I've communicated that to our state rep and state senator, is just simply make the current flexibility permanent. It works fine. If a board like the selectmen wants to meet in person, you meet in person. If for whatever reason a board needs to meet remotely, they can meet via Zoom. The public can participate. It's great. We have the flexibility to do what's best for us. There was one of the bills pending would have extended that for a period of time. I think it was until a year from December, something like that. But what's really concerning is the House just has a new bill out, and an amendment to it was adopted on a voice vote that would not only continue the flexibility, but it would require a much more cumbersome and expensive hybrid technology for every single board and committee meeting, meaning that if this board wanted to meet in person, we would have to have technology in place so that people from home could not just watch it on TV as they can now, but actively have a two-way participation. And that would be for every single board and committee meeting. And obviously, some nights we have multiple meetings at the same time. They meet at multiple locations, and you can see from the MMA letter, they are really upset about this and are urging the legislature not to adopt it because it's quite simply just another unfunded mandate on communities. Communities, you know, there are many that are even smaller than us and that have less staff, less financial resources, and this financial and staffing burden would be terrible. So I don't normally say this, but I would actively urge all of you to contact our state senator and state rep and tell them that you oppose any unfunded mandates, and just to like not unnecessarily complicate this and just continue the current flexibility. So we'll see where it shakes out. I feel like something's going to happen. I don't think they're just going to let this expire and make everyone go back to the way things were, especially given the more recent surge. But I'm just worried, given what I've been reading, that there's a real chance that they could make this difficult and expensive for us to comply with penalties if you don't. So and as soon as I hear what gets voted, I'll obviously push that out to all of you and to all the other board and committees so everyone knows what their options are as far as remote participation. But this is the latest information that I've seen. So I just wanted to update you and the public on that.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions, comments, concerns from the board? Okay, moving on. Other new business not reasonably anticipated?
I have none.
Okay, old business. McKinley Building / Community Center feasibility study, follow-up and
So
discussion.
that we've already really addressed. I just
Yeah.
wanted to list it on the agenda,
Yeah.
and it was technically old business.
Other old business not reasonably anticipated?
I have none.
Town administrators report and correspondence, Doug.
Great, thanks, Mike. A few things. The first, just another reminder on the police chief hiring process. I'm going to be doing my interviews with the candidates next week. And then we have, through Mike, we're going to schedule the 3 candidates at your August 9th meeting for you to publicly interview. So I'm excited about this. I'm obviously not excited that the current chief is leaving. Chief Llewellyn has done a wonderful job, but I'm excited that we have 3 excellent internal candidates, and we're going to be in great shape no matter who you choose. So that'll be my interview next week, Selectmen's interviews on August 9th. Next, I want to let you know that the Joint Waterworks, they have a vacancy on their board. Not sure if I mentioned that before, but one of their members on the Rockland Commission has resigned. So I should be getting a recommendation from the remaining members of the current board for who they would recommend to fill the remainder of that term until the next election. And as is normally the case, that would be a joint meeting with the remaining members of that board and all 5 of you to make that appointment. So it's possible we could put that on the August 9th agenda if I get the information and if working with Mike that works. As far as staffing goes, there's a lot going on with staffing. We've just filled a number of vacancies I thought I'd let you know about. A clerical position in the accounting department, Lynn will be starting soon. In the assessing department, another clerical position, Meg, will be starting soon. We have a new custodian that we share between Town Hall and the library. His name is Jamie, and he's already started. And obviously, the board knows you've hired a new Council on Aging director, Darlene. She'll be starting shortly as well. And we're still working on several other vacancies. The assistant treasurer is one that we're still looking to fill. We're working hard at that. And then next coming up, we're going to be advertising for the town planner and the HR coordinator that were funded at town meeting. In the police department, there's a clerical vacancy for an admin assistant. We'll be posting that one. And the water department has an operator position. Don't ask me exactly what the operator does, but I know that is a vacancy. And our director of assessing, Deb, is going to be retiring, so the Board of Assessors is in the process of reviewing resumes and interviewing folks for that position. So Stacy's been very busy in addition to all the other stuff that she does. We have a number of positions that we filled and that we're still working on. Related to that, just as another reminder, I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. In order to make room for 2 of those positions, the town planner and the HR coordinator, because there are no vacant offices in this building, we're going to be constructing 2 very small offices downstairs in the downstairs conference room. That room is similar size to this, so we're basically going to be cutting the room in half. So that front portion will remain a small conference room, which should be suitable for just normal town staff meetings. Should be fine for Finance Committee meetings and Community Preservation Act Committee meetings, because generally not many from the people from the public attend those. But all the larger planning board, zoning board, conservation commission meetings, we're going to move all of those to the high school, the lecture hall, which is really a perfect space for those
Sure.
because it's a much more modern space. It's larger, it can accommodate more people. I can't tell you how many times I've been downstairs for zoning or planning or conservation meeting, and there's people out in the hall, and it's really not ideal. So that'll work better. And thanks to Dr. Cron and Jane Hackett for making that space available to us. So that's coming down the pike over the next couple months. We hope to get those 2 offices constructed. Next, relating to our opioid settlements, we should be receiving our first payment through the consortium and the State Attorney General's office. I don't have the exact amount yet, but when I get it, I will let you know. It should be coming shortly. An interesting, maybe not interesting, but just some of the Department of Revenue rules around this I want you to be aware of. The current Department of Revenue guidelines for the opioid settlement funds states that it has to go into the general fund, and then it ultimately has to be appropriated out at town meeting. It can't be set aside. So the legislature is apparently looking at possible amendments that would allow towns to set aside opioid settlement funds into separate accounts, but would still require a town meeting appropriation. As I read through the Department of Revenue bulletin, what my recommendation, I think, is going to be to you later in the fall as we're doing the budget and thinking about the next town meeting warrant, is I'm going to recommend that we create a new special purpose stabilization fund just for the opioid funds. That way it doesn't get lost in the general fund and used for some other random purpose, but really targeted toward opioid related impacts. And in our staff meeting this morning, the fire chief and the police chief had really good ideas about when they're responding to overdoses, all kinds of additional resources that could potentially be done, maybe even with outside nonprofit agencies, that things like this could be targeted towards. So there'll be a lot more discussion to come on that. I want to actually get the money, want to see what the final Department of Revenue rules are, then we can talk more about it, and you guys can give me different direction if you have a different thoughts. And then lastly, I just wanted to recognize Peggy Bryan from our Council on Aging. I know probably Mike and some others will say something as well. So Peggy's been our COA director and worked for the town for nearly 20 years. And I just want to congratulate her again on all of her accomplishments, her years of service, what she's done to help lead this incredibly vibrant and successful senior center is really just incredible. And I know it's very bittersweet for her because it's time for her to retire and spend time with her family. But she's put her heart and soul into this job, into this career, or this passion of hers, and so I think it's going to be hard for her, but she's very excited about Darlene taking over. She has a professional experience with her and feels that she's passing the baton off and will be in good hands. So I just wanted to publicly thank Peggy for all of her hard work. She'll be missed, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Doug. Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Selectwoman Childs.
Yeah, I just want to thank all of my co-members of the board for keeping me up to date when I was on vacation. When I was on vacation, I traveled through D.C. on the day that the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. So I said to my husband, we were in our camper, I said, just drop me off at the Supreme Court and as close as you can get. And I went and protested that day and spoke in front of the Supreme Court regarding this, to advocate for bodily autonomy for all women, and that we not go back to the draconian healthcare practices before Roe v. Wade. I'm happy to report that the majority of people there were on the pro-choice side. I love this country, probably not as much as I love my husband, but comes down close. And I was very torn about coming to this meeting and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And I decided that, yeah, I'm going to say the Pledge of Allegiance because I do pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I don't believe our country's united now, but I do pledge my allegiance to the United States of America and the country I grew up in and the country I'm proud of. And I'm sure all of you guys love this country as passionately. So what I was going to put out there is that to change the situation we're in, each of us every day can exhibit kindness and compassion, and it can start with us as individuals. So that's it. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Lori. Selectwoman Needham.
I wanted to thank the First Congregational Church and the Rockland Cares for co-sponsoring the Rockland races. This past Monday, they had their first event with hundreds of kids at the Bicentennial track, and it was just awesome. And they will be continuing this every Monday at 6 o'clock, and I believe it's children ages 2 to 12. And it's very simple. They line the kids up by ages, and they have 3 separate races, and at the end, every child gets a ice pop, and they are delighted about that ice pop, and then they go and they play in the park, and it is such a wonderful event. And I just wanted to thank both the First Congregational Church and the Rockland Cares for doing this. This year, Rockland Cares is a new sponsor of the event, but it's just a nice time, so I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Selectwoman Shorto.
I want to say thank you to Peg. I worked in the treasurer's office when she first was handed the mantle, and she came in being a little cautious, and watching her grow and just make it such a great place has been so fantastic. And yes, I've been around that long.
It's about 20 years for Peg, so that's really dating you, right?
Yeah, well, I have 32 years in the town, so yeah, I've been here that long. But watching her that day and talking to her and having her know that she could do it, but watching her step into it and make it such a great program. I send all of the best wishes to her. And I want to thank her. She's done a fabulous job.
Thank you, Donna. Vice Chair Neiman.
I want to start by thanking my colleagues for trusting me to serve as vice chair for another year. I also want to thank Mike for his leadership over the past, 3 years? Last year?
Yeah.
Looking forward to working together, going forward over the next year with Mike and the rest of the board. We have a lot of work to do, but it's good work, and I'm looking forward to it. I also want to congratulate Peg on her retirement. I've known Peg on a personal and professional level for many years. The Senior Center holds a special place in my heart for obvious reasons, but she's done a great job over there, and we wish her well.
Thank you, Kara. So yeah, I'll piggyback on what everybody just said about Peggy. Peggy, it's funny, Jean, Tiffany mentioned earlier about the possibility of you having a new building and the stuff that you've accomplished so far with the building that you have and the expectations for what you'll do in a new building, how that creativity can go. And that really is what occurred with Peggy and the Council on Aging. They went from the exact same place you were in the McKinley School, trying to make it work, to realizing the vision and the dream that they had for it when they got the Nyman Center on Plain Street rather, and it was that program grew from I think 900 people a week to 3,500, maybe 4,000 people checking in there, and it's become, from what I hear around the South Shore, the number one Council on Aging that exists out there, and it's the Council on Aging that everybody looks to get ideas. So that's Peggy and her team. They've done a great job over the years, and she'll be sorely missed. Anybody that wants to say bye to Peggy, I think it's July 20th, a week from tomorrow. It's 10 o'clock, I believe, 11 o'clock at the Nyman Center.
10 to 2.
10 to 2, yep. Also, I just do want to recognize somebody that kind of goes under the radar for doing a really good job on a pretty difficult job too. She coordinates. She's the regulatory secretary, Deb Shuttlesworth. She coordinates for zoning. She's the secretary for conservation and planning, and she just does an amazing job coordinating all those boards and keeping them informed, and taking the minutes and drafting the postings. So that board those boards have asked me to recognize her, and just a quick shout out at a selectmen's meeting doesn't seem like it's sufficient, but she does a great job, and I just thought it was worthwhile to mention. Also, reiterate what Kara said. Just want to thank you, ladies, for your faith in me going forward for another year. It's a job I take very seriously, and I'm proud to serve the town in the manner in which I do, and I look forward to serving again for another year as chairperson. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, to enter executive session, not to reconvene, to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the town of Rockland, and the chair so declares pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to wit, Thomas Rubel versus Christopher Falco et al., and to investigate charges of criminal misconduct, or to consider the filing of criminal complaints pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A5, and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, all units, AFSCME, clerical, AFSCME, highway, park, tree, police officers, police superior officers, and firefighters pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3.
So
Not to
moved.
reconvene. So moved. Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? And a second?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Roll call. Selectman Childs?
Yes.
Selectman Shortall?
Yes.
Selectman Needham?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Nyman?
Yes.
And myself. Thank you, everyone. Good night.